What's up, my pilots? And Poncho here, we're back. Learning about Redstone. As you can see, the world is starting to become quite populated with all these gates and things we've been building. So in this episode, part 3, we're going to do some intermediate level gates. There are ones that are tougher than these, and they'll be coming later. Probably after we do some other demos and things. So up to this point, I assume you sort of watched the last video and you have a general understanding of what each of these is supposed to do. Even if you don't know how to build them, I hopefully at least understand what the logic behind it is, like what OR means and what AND means, etc. If you missed it, or if the video was a little confusing, sort of hard to follow, first off, down in the description, there is a download link for this world, as it currently stands. And in the world, now you'll notice that there are these chests, and inside you will find a book. And there's a chest for every different kind of gate. Every different demonstration has its own chest, and inside you'll find a book explaining what's what. So here, I'll show you the. Here's the book for OR gates. You know, oh, an OR gate is on when any of the inputs is on. Many inputs can be on, but just one is required. Remember that signals can flow backwards if repeaters aren't used. So there you go. You know, helpful tips. Hopefully, it makes it easy to understand what this section is meant to be demonstrating. So yeah, if you have any other questions about what's what, again, feel free to leave them in the comments. Alright, so on to the fun gates. These are powerful ones. Although, to be honest, you can, like we said, you can build anything with not an OR if you want, but there are some easier ones. So this is XOR. It's short for exclusive OR. And the output to an XOR gate is like an OR gate, except for one difference. In an OR gate, the output turns on when any of the inputs are on. On an XOR, or exclusive OR, the output is on when exactly one input is on, but not both. So it only differs from OR in the case when they're both on. XOR turns off. So watch the output line over there. When one line is on and the other is off, it's true. Basically, on is true. And when both are on, it's false. So if we switch this, yeah, you can see it works for all the different combinations of on and off over here. We get on again, and once this goes off, it goes off. So yeah, it's on when exactly one input is on, but not both. So there's a couple ways to build it. This is probably the easiest way to demonstrate how it actually works. So you got 3 torches. You have one torch that can depower the other 2, and these other 2 have their outputs ORed into the result. So what happens is, the default state is that this back torch is on, and it turns off these torches, which means the output is off. But as soon as one of the inputs turns on, this torch gets powered. This block gets powered, rather, which means the torch gets suppressed. And when that torch gets suppressed, it means that this torch is able to turn on, because now the signal here is off, so the signal here turns on, and it turns on the gate. Nice. So the only tricky part is when both of the inputs are on. What's happening here? It's basically the same scenario, right? Where rather than this line being on and turning off both of these torches, you have your direct lines turning off all 3 torches. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. If any of this is sort of hard to follow, I highly recommend you try and build it yourself. It really will deepen your understanding of how the gates work and what they're good for. So this is another XOR. Some people pronounce this XOR or exclusive OR. I just say XOR. This is a narrower version. You see this one's fairly large. It's 5 by 5 on the ground. But this is an easy pattern to memorize. If you want just a simple one to learn to build, this is a good one. But I actually usually build this one because it's fairly convenient, and it has a very obvious in and out side. So this is just a little narrower, except that it goes 2 blocks high. And it's basically the exact same gate, except it's been compressed a little bit. So you still have this torch, which is able to depower the other 2 in the front here. But the addition is there's these other 2 torches in the back that are used to actually knot both of the inputs, which doesn't matter if they're both knotted. The output will be the same. So that's what this dust is here for. It's receiving power from the torches underneath these blocks. So these blocks have to be here. If the block was not there, this dust wouldn't get its power properly, because this torch can't power it directly. It has to go through a block above it. So power goes up from the torch, powers this block, so it's strongly powered, receiving power from source, which allows it to pass the power through onto here. So again, this gate has the same outputs as the previous XOR. And here's the compressed 3x3x3. I guess in terms of volume, it's actually a little bit larger than the last couple, because this would be, what, 27 instead of 25 compared to the first one. But it's not actually a 3x3x3, because you got a lot of air up here. It really just takes up 3x3 on the front and 3x3 on the ground, but you have some empty spaces out here. So you can sneak this into a wall or under a ceiling, or under a floor if you're creative about where you put it. And again, it's the same story. You've got a center torch that can depower two others, and then you have lines coming in to either power or depower the center torch and the output torches. So it works the exact same way. The concept is the same as the first gate, but it's easiest to see in the flat ones. Okay, so here's an implies gate. This is the next one. It's usually called implies. I'm going to be referring to it as if, just because it's shorter. And implies all in caps just looks weird. So implies is a little bit more complicated than the previous gates in that all of the other gates are what we would call symmetric in the inputs. So when I have an XOR, it's on when exactly one input is on, but it doesn't matter which input. You know, if it's just this one, it works, and if it's just this one, it works. It doesn't matter which is which. Well, in an if gate, the two inputs are differentiated. We're going to have, for these if gates, a pink input and a red input. And all the gates are built in my examples such that red implies pink. So here's how you can understand an implies gate. So the red input is on the left side of the implication. So you would read this as red implies pink. That's how you'd read the arrow. You just say implies. Or then you could also pronounce this if red, then pink, which means if red is true, then pink must be true in order for the entire statement to be holding a value of true, which would be the output. So here's the horizontal version. It's a little bit hard to grasp, actually. I might want to just show you the standard first. So here's the standard if. The output. Okay, so here's your two cases. If the red line is off, then the output is always on, and pink doesn't matter. Here, so if I can get this all on one sheet, on one screen. Yeah, so if the red line is off, then the output is on and pink doesn't matter. But if once red turns on, the output matches pink. So watch here. Clear enough, I hope? It's not too complicated, but again, build it and think about it, and it'll seem simpler the more you consider it, actually. So I definitely recommend trying to build one of these if you're going to use them. It basically gives you a control signal. This is the first gate where we have differentiation on the inputs, because the red is sort of like a control signal. And as long as it's off, that output is going to stay on, and it doesn't matter what this lever is doing. But as soon as you activate your control signal, your pink line becomes the controller. It becomes active, which means that it gets to determine what the output is. So you could actually have input control on all of your different gates. You could have a red line that has to be powered in order for other inputs to be passed through. So you can use this to control input. Like if someone was if you had a gate that gave unstable input, and you didn't want it constantly pulsing, you wanted to be able to disable it. So suppose that whatever power was coming from the pink line was just going nuts, and you wanted to be able to turn that off sometimes, you could just pass the signal through an implies gate and leave the red line off, and that would mean this signal would be steady. It would always be on, though, so if you needed it to be off, you could just put a not at the end. So there's your standard version. Over here, we have the bi-level if, which is the same logic. When red is off, Output is on, and it don't matter what you do, Mr. Pink. Output's still going to be on. But as soon as the red line turns itself on, that activates the pink, that essentially connects pink back up to the circuit, and makes its decisions matter. So its status is passed through, and the output matches pink when red is on. This is also representing, this whole logic here is the logic of material implication, which is always true when the antecedent is false, and is true also when both are true. So that's the computer science understanding of it, at least. Again, there are helpful pages in the description if you're interested in reading about the gates and the logic behind them. This if is the same way. So pink don't matter as long as red is off. Once red is on, pink determines the output. And again, there's a book in here you can read. Just sort of a summary of what an if gate is. Alright, and now the coolest gate. By which I mean the most complicated so far. Exclusive, you can tell it's complicated because it has so many names. So one of these is going to raise a question here, but I'll come back to it. So you have XNOR, which is exclusive NOR. Pronounced, sometimes it's referred to as if and only if, written IFF, and it's also sometimes called equals, because equals is probably the easiest way to understand it, because the output is on whenever the inputs are equal. So that would mean they're both on or they're both off. So just watch this. It's on right now because they're equal. They're both off. But as soon as they become different from each other, it turns off. Okay? Now if they're both on, they're equal again. So the output turns on. Conceptually, probably easier to understand than implies. But to build one takes a bit more work. So if you sort of break down the name, you've got an X, an N, and an OR. And the logic is sort of exclusive not OR. It's a little bit tricky. So here's one way you can build it with an XOR gate and then a NOT gate. So this XOR, this first bit that you're looking at right here, is what I guess you could call the dead mouse XOR. I recognize it from this bunny ears shape that's up top here. It's sort of a Mickey Mouse head. This is an XOR gate, and it's just like the gate you see right over there in the XOR examples. So it's XOR, and then right here is a simple NOT gate. They're an old school repeater, as someone called it in the comments. Yeah, that's how we used to do it. So that's what it combines to. So you have XOR and then NOT. So it's like the NOT sort of gets appended on the interior like that. And you can also do it in the other order, but this is a little bit trickier. So it's also like NOT. So that was like XOR and then NOT. This is NOT and then XOR. So, but the difference is you have to NOT just one of the inputs. So that's why I said NOT A, if you're calling the inputs A and B. So we NOT one input, and then run it through an XOR gate. And the output's going to behave just like I said. When these signals here are matching, the output is on. Yeah, so you got the two different ways you can build it with by putting other gates together, where you have XOR and then NOT, or you have NOT A and then XOR, and then there's hard mode. Basically, this is a gate that has the logic all built in one, in what I guess you could call it one gate. Really, I think if you broke it down, you'd still find an XOR and a NOT in here, but it's just a little bit trickier to build. That's why I called it hard mode. Because when you have a lot of stuff on top of other stuff, it can be hard to visualize where things are, and it's easy to miss a torch or a piece of redstone and have this whole thing just not work. So yeah, it's a... can I get on top of there, please? It's like a 4x3x2, 2 blocks high. And I'm not going to even bother to try and explain how this one works because I haven't analyzed it. I just know that it does because I've tested it. So when their inputs are equal, output is on. When they're different, it's off. Okay, so one of the names for the XNOR gate, the equals gate, is if and only if. So I need to explain what only if is. It's a little bit a little bit tricky, I guess, since I don't have an only if demonstration here, because it's the same as if, but in the other direction. So I'll demonstrate by changing this gate. So right now, this is if red, then P, or pink. If red, then pink. But if I switch the orientation, now you could read it red only if pink. So it's sort of it's like the reverse. And if you were to put it on a sign, you would write the exact same way and just change the direction of the arrow. So to demonstrate, this would be red implies pink, or if red then pink. And this would be red only if pink. So you see, it's basically just, it's a bi-directional, one way and the other way. And you can actually build an equals gate out of this, because when if is true and only if is true, it happens to be when the two inputs are equal. And so here I've built a composite gate out of the two. So I've taken here an if gate, if red then pink, and here I have an only if gate, red only if pink. Make sense? Hopefully. It probably doesn't, but just understand that these two gates combine to be an XOR. So if you go all the way down here, it's also, there's an and on the end here because it's if and only if. So the actual sentence is itself the terms for the gates that you'd want to use. If and only if. And the output's right. Both of them are off right now, so it's on. And I will go over here and flip this, and you'll see the output turns itself off when they don't match. Now, this gate, I would not recommend building it exactly like this, because honestly, you're getting the same logic here as you are in the much smaller or simpler versions. I just wanted to demonstrate that the equality holds here for if and only if being the same thing as equals. Okay, one other thing I'd like to do in this video, which is going to be just a little demonstration over here off to the other side. I'd like to build the standard version of all the gates that we have standard versions for right now. So just to try and make things clearer for us. So the simplest one that we have standard for, here, I'll just stick it anywhere. I'll move it around later if I have to. We'll start with OR, okay? So the standard gate in all cases is going to look something like this. Oops. Shh. So something like that. So we'll start like that for all of them. And we have our inputs over here and our output over there. So an OR gate, if you remember, is just connecting the lines together, and the power will flow from either one. If you wanted to be really careful about not having backwards flowing signals, you could use repeaters here instead of repeaters instead of wires. The rain is so damn loud. Oh, stop it. I should put a roof on this area. A big glass roof. Yeah. So there's an OR gate for you. Alright, let's move over here. Do the next one. So reds are inputs, blues are outputs, purple's the gate itself. Alright, let's do AND next. Okay. So AND looks like this. I don't know what's up with the levers now. It seems like half the time when you place them, they face one way, and half of the time they face the other way. They used to only go one direction. I don't know what's up with it. It seems random. Anyway, so here's an AND gate. Let me put a sign in front of it. So there's AND. I've explained this gate in the past, but you can see how it compares to the OR gate. It takes a bit more building to do. And now, just for comparison's sake, I'm going to go ahead and put the NAND gate next, so we can get AND and NAND next to each other. So you can look at the two of them. So the only difference between AND and NAND is that a NAND does not have the torch on the back. They're the same. And the reason is, this is actually a NAND gate, like you'd see over here, followed by a NOT. I mentioned that when we'd not yet learned, I think, about NAND, and then I mentioned it again when we had NAND. Here they are side by side. So you can see that they're opposites of each other, which makes sense, because this gate is just that one followed by a NOT. So of course it would be knotted, it would be the opposite, right? That follows. Look at these silly torches, or silly levers. Half of them want to face one way, half of them want to face the other way. It bugs me. I make them all face the same direction. Okay, what other gates do we have standards for? We have a standard implies gate that we just learned. See, all of these are not too complicated to build, and if you can remember the standard versions, it's not that bad. So here, I guess I should use 2 different colors for the inputs so we can keep track of it. And I'll put a sign down here. Oh, let's see. This is going to be red implies pink, which would be an if gate. If red, then pink. There we go. Let's do this. Oh, stop it. See, that's weird. It's just sort of random almost. There we go. So there's our standard if gate. No torch on the back. And it behaves just like we thought it would. Turn on the red line and the pink line starts controlling the output. Turn it off, the output's always on. So you can see how it's different from an AND gate, or rather from a NAND. Look at the differences between these last two. All you've got is an extra torch right here. So the implies gate, I guess you could say, is, in terms of building the standard version, it's simpler than NAND, which is simpler than OR. Or simpler than AND, rather. But I suppose OR is probably the easiest, because if you don't mind backflow, you don't need any torches at all. So you see 0 torches, 1 torch, 2 torches, 3 torches. Interesting, isn't it? It's just little changes like that that completely change the way that the output behaves. Now, am I missing one here? Do we have an XOR standard? We do have NOR standard, don't we? Yeah, let's do a NOR over next to the OR. Shall we? So, as I explained logically when we learned about OR, it's basically, or when we learned about NOR, it's just an OR with a NOT, which is when you have that torch coming down off the side. The signal here will be opposite of the signal here. Right? So, what? I was setting a lever to appear and I get a big hunk of blue wool. There we go. So here's your NOR gate. It's on whenever both outputs are off, and it's off otherwise. Here we go. As soon as one input turns on, the output turns off. Dang it. That scroll wheel is getting sticky. NOR. There we go. So that's another standard. I don't think we had a okay, so we did OR, we did AND, we did NOR, we did NAND. We don't have an XOR. XOR takes more logic than you can build in one of these simple designs. Then we have an if. We don't have XNOR, because XNOR is more complicated than XOR. Okay, so there's your 5 standard gates. So hopefully not too weird to try and understand the 5 of these, because you can pretty much build whatever you like if you understand these. And the other ones are more for specific uses. These are very good in general. Alright, so there's our 5 standard versions. I'd like to make something that's similar to the standard with an XOR and an XNOR, but I don't think it's possible. I think you need at least 5 torches in order to build one that works, or 3 torches in order to build one that works, but that would only be able to, that would look something like this. So it would take up quite a bit of space, I think. I suppose I could attempt something here. Yeah, I guess the best you really could do would be to build this one. Because I think that, well, maybe not. Hang on. Let me just logic this out here. If I did, yeah, it's not coming out to be as simple as I thought, because it's just going to be a mess, honestly. Yeah, you can't build it this small because you can't get to both of these sides. The power from this redstone dust is only going to go into one of these 2 blocks, and if it's from the direction it comes from. Okay, yeah, so that's a we'll nix that idea. Good in principle, though, that we sort of understand that it's more complicated than the standard design really allows. Alright, so that's it for part 3. We've learned enough about gates and stuff for now. It's time to see what we can do with all this stuff. So in the next episode, I'm going to demonstrate 4 different uses. We're going to do some in-house demos of these basic gates. And all of these 4 uses are going to use nothing other than the stuff we've learned so far. Yeah, that's coming up next time. Again, if you have any questions or comments, you can put questions or comments. You can put them in the comments. And there's a world download and helpful links in the description. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.